guys, Freddy here. Welcome back to another Retro RPG. At the end of another week and the end of another poll, we've got a winner with the Alternity Gamemaster Guide. Now I'll have a look at that on the desktop in a wee second, and as usual I'll be back at the end of the video with some other channel related stuff and some other poll related stuff. But just a wee reminder, if you'd like to help the channel out, or you'd like to see these videos a week early, then there's a Patreon in the description down below, so if you click on that you can see what we offer. Anyway, let's have a look at the Alternity Gamemaster Guide. So, this is the Alternity Gamemaster's Guide, which came out from TSR in 1998, making it one of TSR's final products before they were bought out by Wizards of the Coast. Now this is very much their science fiction Dungeons & Dragons, even down to having the Player's Handbook and Gamemaster's Guide as separate books. But unlike Dungeons & Dragons, Alternity really doesn't need the separate book for most of the rules. A lot of what's in here is nice to have. It's useful stuff for a games master to pad out his game and add extra rules. But the core of the game's definitely in the Player's Handbook, and the first few pages of this book kind of prove that point. But we'll see that as we go through. Let's have a look at the back cover. So, Alternity Gamemaster's Guide by Richard Baker and Bill Slavicsek. Bill Slavicsek is a name I really recognise because he was behind a lot of the Star Wars D6 system. One of their main product line managers, I believe. It was great stuff. Anyway, as the scene opens, hostile alien vessels converge on a starship in the distant reaches of space. Scientists and doctors examine the dying victim of a mutant strain of bacteria. Heavily armoured space marines discover an ancient artifact on a desolate world. Imagine the future, one epic at a time. This role-playing game provides a framework for all kinds of contemporary far-future science fiction adventures. The Gamemaster Guide, the companion volume to the Alternity Player's Handbook, contains everything needed to moderate the Alternity game, including rules for creating memorable supporting characters, adventures and campaigns for any SF setting, a fast-play chapter that teaches the basics of moderating the game and provides a starting adventure, starship construction rules and a tactical space combat system, comprehensive star system design rules, including stellar classes and planetary environments, more than 30 aliens, creatures and dangerous animals to use as opponents, templates that quickly bring supporting characters to life, guidelines for designing new alien species and alien artifacts, adventure triggers to spur your imagination and ignite the action, and a complete index for both the Player's Handbook and the Gamemaster's Guide. Which future do you want to play? Now, while this is trying to be a generic science fiction game, it is more in the Traveller or Star Wars mould of being space opera, especially as the artifacts in it are almost magical items. But we'll see that as we go through. So we've got an advert on the inside cover for the Star Drive setting, which was possibly the biggest setting for Alternity. I've got a few books for that, but I don't believe I actually have the campaign setting itself. We see inside the publishing quality is very, very nice. By the time this had come out, TSR was doing some very, very nice looking books. The artwork is very pretty. It looks fairly similar in style to me to the D20 system, both the Player's Handbook, but more D20 modern, which I absolutely adore the look of, an almost cartoonish style. So we go through the introduction. What is the Alternity game? What is role-playing? Who can play? How do you win? Alternate Tomorrows, how to use this book, getting started, then talks through tables and sidebars, and then has some final words of advice. And then we've got the fast play rules. So we've got, do you want to be the Games Master, what the role is, the key concepts. We go through presenting an adventure, narration, supporting cast, pacing, moderating the rules, the setting, using the game mechanic, the most important rule, which is not every action requires a dice roll. Talks through the rule system, which is situation dice steps. Talks you through putting into practice, action rounds, damage, secondary damage, armor, and recovery. So basically, we're on page 12, and we've covered the core rules of the game. We've gone through combat, we've gone through skills, we've gone through the absolute basics of how to run the game. And we're straight into Cauldron Station, an introductory Alternity adventure. This adventure uses the fast play rules to introduce games masters and players to the Alternity game. So, it takes place in a far future setting. Basically, the players are the crew of a starship coming into a station on the planet Cauldron, which is superheated, and the base they are docking at to trade with is under attack by alien life forms which have evolved to survive on an absolutely scalding hot planet, so are very, very toxic to the people inside. And you've got the people in the station, you've got various things, you're trying to trade, you're fighting off the monsters. It's kind of like Aliens, and it's a great little starting adventure. Not too much, but it's a whole load of fun. Very simplistic, 5 pages of adventure there, but then we're on to hero creation. So we've actually played the game already, if we're working our way through the book. Absolutely fantastic to get you into the game so quickly. And now we're on to all this extra stuff. Because you've had the player's handbooks, you understand the game, but this is all padding it out and helping a games master understand more. So we go through ability scores, age categories by species for the different player character species, ability score generation, random ways of developing them, designing new species so you can add to just the core races in it, and goes through step by step as they've created a new species, what its stats are, showing you how they made up one. We've got advantages, weaknesses, all the things you need to pad out a character or a race, talking about perks and flaws, role-playing attributes, different equipment. And then we're talking through Games Master in action. So, how to roll dice, when not to roll dice, what the core mechanic and how it works, figuring out odds, making automatic successes, how time passes in a role-playing game. These are all help a games master. They're not absolutely core to the rules. If you've got the player's handbook and you understand games mastering, you probably don't need this book as well. But it just pads things out and helps you with the system. So we've got combat scales, surprise check modifiers, how to handle melee attacks and blocking, ranged attacks, different special tactics, whether you can use 2 weapons, how damage works, how armor works, stun damage, wounds, all the usual stuff, but just detailing a bit more than player's handbook. Different types of hazards like disease, drowning, electricity, poisons, different environments and planets you might reach. So we've got things like planets might have low gravity or very high gravity, super high gravity. They might have different levels of radiation. The pressure might be different from vacuum right up to crushing, whether they're hot or cold. Then we're on to the skills, talking about using untrained skills, speciality skills, different feats, the things you can do, and then we're detailing through the skills themselves. So acrobatics, daredevil, dodge, defensive. Just all the skills out of the book, just breaking them down a bit more for the games master. This does echo what's in the player's handbook a lot, but as I said, just has a bit more detail. We're on to perks and flaws. Detailing them out. How to create NPCs. What type of NPCs, villains, allies and sidekicks, experts, followers and employees. Just extras, people who are passers-by. Then we've got a bunch of character templates to use. So we've got MOGA. So we've got marginal characters, ordinary characters, good characters, and amazing characters. So if you want to have a very high level administrator, you've got the stats there with everything they've got, their amazing level skills. Or if they're just meeting a very low level administrator, somebody who's running the town hall in a small village, then they will probably just be the marginal character. We've got all sorts of NPCs, corporate executives, doctors, traders, spies, soldiers. A bunch of stats to use. Attributes and character traits. Setting characters in story, contacts and allegiances. We've got a whole section on social status and how income and finances work. Then we've got achievements, so how to level up, how to hand out the experience, how to run the game, the art of being a games master. Prepare, prepare, prepare. The very big clue to what you're required to do as a games master. Preparation is key. And then roleplay, roleplay, roleplay. They do like repeating themselves, apparently. Keep things moving, ending a session, just lots of good hints here. If you're an experienced games master, again, this isn't absolutely key to you, but as a novice who's just coming into this game, great stuff. We've got tons of stuff, how to resolve things, setting difficulty, how time, dice and role-playing. Then we're on to vehicles. So we've got different types of vehicles here. Goes through the rules of them, different equipment they can have, different weapons, you know, vehicle detection, armor, all the stuff you would expect in a science fiction vehicle. Maneuvers you can take, so you can loop or take a hard bank. Spaceships, which I would have thought would have been handled more in with the vehicles, but they are obviously a lot more complex. We've got the different type of compartments, so communications compartments, computer, crew, defense, cargo, drive, engine, defensive systems, sensor systems, etc. And it goes through all of those as you buy them, what their availability is, what the cost is as you're building up a starship. Detailing them all out, so life support units, recycler units, point defense guns, damage control, passenger suites, missile, matter torpedoes. Then we're on to customizing and spaceship movement, how to handle your spaceship combat. Random hit locations for where the compartments are hit, depending on how well they hit, what compartments of the ship are damaged. So mortal damage to a ship, damage to passengers and crew, damage control systems. Then we've got alien artifacts. Well, artifacts in Alternity are very much like artifacts in Dungeons and Dragons. They are powerful items beyond what you can normally get. But because this is a science fiction game, these are alien technology left over from elder species or that kind of thing. So if we keep going through, we've got things which will offer. The artifact extends the user's perception to allow him to sense emotional states of others. The device allows the hero to heal injuries, allows the hero to survive indefinitely in hostile conditions, projects a field that bends electromagnetic energy, rendering objects invisible. When activated, the device provides a brief mental vision or flash of something that will happen unless the hero takes definite steps to prevent it. Degeneration, energy cost, infamous device, leech. Just all sorts of magical items or items with abilities beyond what could normally be bought. Campaign design, you know, talking through what kind of game you might want, you know, whether you're going to be space opera, super heroic techno thrillers, the Cyberpunk mentioned in there as well, setting the tone of your campaign, how you have travel in starfaring campaigns. Communication, frequency of life, so whether it's humans are going out and colonizing the galaxy, which is otherwise empty, or whether it's Star Wars and every planet has a different culture. We've got campaign architecture, so setting up the layout of it, developing a sector or star systems, using tables to develop random planets, designing the planets, you know, creating sample world maps, creating civilizations to populate planets, lore levels, which is very much like Traveller, civilization levels. This all looks very familiar if you've played Traveller. We're on to adventure design, you know, planning them out, breaking them down into acts, using props, how to end the adventure, gives you a few hooks, ideas what you can use to create your own adventures. And then we've got optional rules. So usually mutants don't exist in Alternity, but it details how they could be used. You know, accidental versus deliberate mutants. We've got psionics, we've got cyber technology, we've got artificial intelligence, we've got effects, which is extra effects, so magical or psychic powers or other things. So we've got arcane magic. We've got faith magic, superpowers, just different special abilities beyond the norm which might exist in a universe. The Force in Star Wars, for example. Example effects, so fate casting, ball of lightning, flying, strength of the behemoth. Then we're on to section on aliens. Now these tend to go over very ordinary animals first of all, so we've got great apes, we've got constrictors, we've got scorpions, But then we've got more generic, so amphibians, arthropods, bovines, canines, nematodes. And finally, we've got an appendix here, which basically bridges between Alternity and AD&D. So we've got the various races here. We've got dwarves, elves, gnomes, halflings, half-elves. We've got the different classes and how they convert across, how level and skills convert across, combat skills. So, converting spellcasters in a magical universe. So, how to take your D&D characters into space, basically. Fantasy heroes in a modern game. And then we've got the index. The index details not only items within this book, but the player's handbook. So you can use this to find anything between the two books, easily locating rules. A short index of the tables, supporting cast statistical form, showing you how NPC stats are laid out, detailing them, telling you the information, and letting you know where everything is and how it works. System record forms for plotting out star systems, and then we've got the acknowledgements at the end, an advert for the amazing stories. Now, as I said, Alternity is a fantastic game. I've absolutely adored it since I picked it up while doing this channel, doing the introductory box. But this book is a little extraneous. You don't need it. You can play it with the player's handbook, and this book provides lots of other useful stuff, but if you're a games master, you're probably not going to need most of it. What I really like about this book is the fact that in the first few pages, it gets you into the rules, explains everything, and then gets you a sample adventure. It gets you going and getting you playing. And then you can pick up all this stuff later. It's a very well laid out book. It's very well thought out. And again, even though I do think it's extraneous to the Alternity experience, I do love what they did with it. So that was the Alternity Games Master's Guide, and that won the poll this week with some 30% of the vote, just ahead of the Bangkok sourcebook for Twilight 2000 on 25%, which again was only slightly ahead of Spycraft by Alderac Entertainment, a D20 based game, on 22%. And then way behind we had Immortal the Invisible War on 16% and Cold Hands Dark Hearts for Big Eye Small Mouth on 7%. But that's kind of a joke entry anyway, as it just never does very well in the polls. Anyway, they're all cleared out as usual, and this week we're going to go for a retro adventures. So 5 adventures in the poll this week, let's see which wins. So first of all, we've got DNA DOA for Shadowrun, which is one of the first adventures which came out for Shadowrun, and is by Dave Arneson, the co-creator of Dungeons & Dragons. But this is him writing for Shadowrun. Now, this adventure apparently has its flaws. People think it is a bit dungeon-like. You're down in the sewers and then going through a corporate complex. But I remember playing it and it being a whole load of fun. So that'll be interesting to win. Second, we've got the Key of Deliriad for Slay Industries. Now, Slay Industries didn't really have a whole load of adventures. And this is probably the first one I got. So it'd be interesting to have a look through. It's very much an introductory adventure for the system. We've got Unbound for MechWarrior. Again, a game which didn't have a lot of adventures, so nice to see what they had available. Now it's by Faza again, same people who do Shadowrun, so will be a very high quality book. We've got Survival of the Fittest for Cyberpunk by INS Games. Well, this isn't actually for Cyberpunk 2020. This is for their offshoot of it, Night's Edge, which was the vampire sourcebook. Now that's one of my favourite sourcebooks for any role-playing game, because cyberpunk and vampires seem to fit together very, very well. You know, cybernetically enhanced people hanging around the streets of a rainy city at night, lots of neon around, fits well with vampires loitering in the shadows of the same city on the hunt for victims. Now, it'd be interesting to see what they did with an adventure for it. And finally, we've got Tales from the Ether by Games Designers Workshop for Space 1889. Now, this is actually 5 short adventures set in different settings across the Space 1889. So they're set on Earth, they're set on the Moon, they're set on Mars, they're set on Venus, and they're set on a space station, the Space Heliograph, which flashes messages across by sort of semaphore between the planets. I like these adventures a lot. They got reviewed as particularly bad because they didn't add much to the setting, But again, I think these are very interesting starting adventures, and it'd be nice to go over them. So, let's see which wins out of those 5. I've got a feeling it's going to be Shadowrun. Let's be honest, it's much bigger than all the other games. But anyway, on other channel-related stuff. Well, this is the first video I'm recording after the one I put out about my mother passing away. And I have to thank everybody who left messages. It was very, very much appreciated. I'm not going to name names, but some of the emails I received were extremely touching because people are going through their own things with family members who have dementia, who have Parkinson's disease. So I felt it was very touching to me to know that all these people were sharing in the experience, that they are scared of what their family's going through, and they found the story of my mother heartening to them because it gave them hope that their loved ones would still have some quality of life right up to the end as my mother did. So I must thank absolutely everyone. There were loads of comments on that video. Everybody was very, very kind, except one person who downvoted it, so to you. But everybody else, thank you. I was very touched. Other channel-related stuff, well, I'm kind of in the middle of wrapping up things with my mum's life. The funeral's still to occur when I'm recording this, so I haven't starting doing anything else with the channel. But by the time this video comes out, there should be signs of life on the Discord channel, and I should be getting other things together. So keep an eye out from those, and I'll let you know the next time I record a video. But anyway, I think I've whittled on for quite long enough, so thank you very, very much for watching. But most of all, as always, you look after yourselves and your loved ones.